Drafted Pages podcast. Hockey season is back. We are fully underway. Stars are shining. Teams are looking for new destinies, and somebody will hoist the cup in 2025. Who will it be? We'll find out as the season progresses. But got my dad and my brother here again, as always, to discuss the hockey stuff. And we thought we'd kick it off with a fun little draft today. We are going to all be selecting 4 categories: a top 6 group, a bottom 6 forward group, a defensive core, and a team goalies. At the end of the year, we will summarize all of the points for those 4 categories. For goalies, it'll be save percentage, and whoever comes out on top, I don't know what the prize is going to be yet, but we'll figure that out when we get there. But the catch is, once you draft a team from one of those categories, that team's fully eliminated. So it's going to be 12 unique teams here. We can't go back and double dip. We've already kind of determined the order here, and Matt has the first overall pick, can pick whatever he wants here. Who are you going with, Matt? And
well, I got to put a little strategy in here since we're doing a serpentine draft here, and I'm not going to pick again for 5 more picks. So I'm going to take my bottom 6 forward group to start, and I'm going to take the Dallas Stars bottom 6 forwards. Jamie Benn's in the bottom 6 now. Tyler Seguin is in the bottom 6. Marchment is right on the border there. They've got young guys. Stan Coven is up on the team this year. Could be top 6, could be bottom 6. Maverick Bourque is going to be in the bottom 6. Just a really deep team. I like their bottom 6, not as much as their top 6, but going with a little strategy here. They're a really deep team all around, and I'll get them in the bottom 6 forwards, and I'm going to take the top 6 goalies and defense off the table here until I get to go again. So Dallas Stars bottom 6.
It's a good pick. It's a good pick. Like you said, you got to play a little bit of strategy here with it and determine where you're going to go. For me, I'm going to go with, and I'm rocking the jersey, the Colorado Avalanche defensive core. I like Cale Makar, Devin Tays. They got a lot of pieces back there. That offense is going to score. I think the defensive core is going to wrap up some points, and it's also going to take away some of the other pieces there, like you said, Matt. So I'm going to go with Colorado's defensive core there.
Well, since Matt took the Stars off the table, because I was going to go there for goalie.
I knew it was coming. Someone wanted Ottinger, and someone else wanted Robertson and Hintz.
So in that case, I'm just gonna play percentages at this point. I'm gonna take my top 6 with Edmonton. You can't go wrong with Draisaitl and McDavid at the top of the chart. The rest of the guys, if they just contribute something, we should be okay there. And so for my team goalie, I'm going to go with the Rangers and take Shesterkin, since Matt took Ottinger off the table.
Yeah, both good picks there. I was leaning Edmonton's top 6, but I feel like there's a bunch of options there. So decided to stay away. We'll see if that was a regret, because like you said, their top 6 is going to be filthy. The Rangers, you could have taken any one of those categories, I feel like. So getting them off the board and on your team is a good call there. So that leaves it with me, and it really just comes down to which top 6 do I really believe in to rack up the most points, because that's where I'm leaning. Although there are some deceptive goalies out there, Rangers and Stars all off the board. We're doing this real time, so I'm trying to think here. Give me Florida's team goalies. It's hard to bet against Bob and what they have there defensively, and again, eliminate some of the other positions there that you might want from that team. So I'll go with Florida's team goalies.
All right, so that's back to me. I'm going to go a double pick. I know. I'm going to go D-core, and I'm going to take the New Jersey Devils D-core. If they're healthy, it's one of the deepest D-cores in the league. Dougie Hamilton, Luke Hughes is going to step up. Nemec is getting better. Siegenthaler there. I'm going to take the Devils D-core. And then I'm going to take my top 6 forwards, and I'm going to go with the Leafs, top 6 forwards. Best regular season top 6 group in the league, as long as I can dump them come playoff time. But yeah, I'm going to take the Leafs top 6: Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Matthew Nyes. It's just a solid top 6 group.
It's a great pick. And now I'm looking at the rest of the teams here, and I'm kind of regretting my last pick there with Florida's team goalies. Feel like I may have flubbered that one. For my next pick here, let's go with Tampa's top 6. I feel like that's another team that, I mean, you got Kucherov there, like McDavid and Draisaitl. He's going to rack up some points. They got one of the best first lines in hockey, and we'll see what the second line pieces together, but they're going to score points, and out of what's left there, it's probably one of the better options. So I'll take Tampa's top 6 with the 3rd overall for me.
All right, so I guess I get to fill out my roster now, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go with Vancouver's D. Let's go with them. And
sneaky good there.
Yeah. You never know, but with Quinn Hughes at the top, it's hard to go wrong there. And then bottom 6, let's go out on a limb here. Let's go. Boy, I'm torn between 2 teams. Both are a little risky. You know what? Let's go bottom 6. Let's go Kings. Let's go LA.
A lot of young talent in LA.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning. Let's see what they do.
All right.
Because most of their young talent is playing 3rd and 4th line. It's not yet up on the first 2. So
right, and if it does get onto the first 2 at some point, you're dropping guys like Kopitar down to the 3rd line, which is still a bargain.
Yeah, so we'll go LA.
It's a good choice. Leaves me with my bottom 6. And again, I'm kind of debating between a few teams here. I like the Flyers with a bunch of young rookies, but I don't know how much they're going to score.
I almost went there, but I just couldn't pull the trigger.
And I think I'm just going to try and play it safe and go with the Wild bottom 6. I think they have a bunch of young talent there, as well as a bunch of versatile forwards that are going to kind of play up and down, especially between that 2nd and 3rd line. And we just got to hope that the average ice time at the end of the year favors some of the guys with higher point totals in the bottom 6 there. So that's where I will go to round out my roster.
Since Matt's already picked his bottom 6, I'll tell you that the other 2 I was waffling on. I was looking at Nashville and Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I know Stamkos and Marchessault will be at the top, but their veteran leadership may inspire the other 2 lines, and with their goalie, they could really push for a playoff spot this year. They really could.
Yeah, I think Nashville's a pretty good team there. So that brings it back to me for my goalie, right?
Yep.
Give me Boston. Give me Jeremy Swayman. He's at least going to make saves. I don't know if the Bruins are going to be as good as a team on the whole, but Jeremy Swayman is a stud. So give me Boston for my team goalie.
All right. That rounds it out. Matt with Toronto's top 6, Dallas's bottom 6, New Jersey's defense, and Boston's goalies. Myself with Tampa's top 6, Minnesota's bottom 6, Colorado's D-core, and the Florida Panthers goalies. And then Dad with Edmonton's top 6, the Kings bottom 6, Vancouver's D-core, and the Rangers team goalies. So best of luck, gentlemen. We'll see how that plays out. Couple sneaky teams here I feel like got left off the page, and part of the reason I regretted that Florida pick for goalies. Winnipeg goalies with Hellebuck back there has been one of the premier goalies in the league. They get left off the list. Don't get a single pick there. They have a pretty decent top 6, I would say. Pittsburgh, pretty good defensive team there. Their D-core, Sidney Crosby and Malkin in that top 6. They're still going to score. Left off. Nashville completely left off as well. We talked about them. Detroit, I feel like, is a sneaky team as well with a lot of.
I almost went with Detroit's top 6. If one of you had taken, if you had taken Toronto's top 6, I would have gone Detroit. Would have been my next pick.
They're a sneaky one.
Larkin, DeBrincat, Raymond, and Kane are really going to do some damage.
Yep. They're going to score a lot of goals, that's for sure. And then, like we said, Carolina as well. With a lot of changes in the offseason, that team's a little risky, I feel like, all around. But last year, I feel like if we did this last year, they would have been taken in one of those categories.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure. One of those 4 that you could pretty much banked on them winning one of them. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's interesting. I'll keep this tabbed open, and we'll see who comes out on top. So let's get into the season so far. Like I said, it started. It's underway. We got a few things to talk about, some off-season changes and kind of our expectations for our own teams as well as the league this year. We'll tee it off with talking about our own teams, as we all have our unique teams that we like, kind of the expectations we have there. Dad, I'll point it over to you first with Philly. You got the Michkov hype that's been going crazy. He looked every part that he's ready to play in the NHL in the preseason. We'll see how John Tortorella uses him, as he's known to be a little bit more of a defensive, stubborn coach, not letting a young guy like him really show his finesse and talent. But maybe he's too good of a guy for Torts to box in a corner and make him play that 200-foot game. So, tee it off to you. What are your expectations here for Philly, for Michkov, and the team as a whole going on this season?
So, let me start. We'll get to Michkov in a minute. Let's start with Luchenko. Shocked that Torch kept him on the roster. Kid's only 17. A lot of talent. But, with the end of the NHL is a grind. Is he really ready for the grind? It's going to be very interesting how Torch uses him, where he uses him, how he plays him. Michkov, I think, and again, we talk. It's preseason until you do it in the real thing. It doesn't mean anything. But having said that, I think the Calder's his to lose going into the season. He's got to be the odds-on favorite to win it. So, barring an injury, barring just a complete collapse, I expect him to win the Calder. He will do some damage out there. I've watched some of their preseason games. The kid's definitely got the talent. He's definitely got skill. And boy, can he shoot. So I'm expecting big things from him. The team as a whole, I don't know. It's a big, big question mark. They made a push for the playoffs last year and then kind of fizzled out at the end of the year and didn't make it. I think I'm in the category that Matt was it last year with the Red Wings? I just want them to be competitive. I don't want them to be a pushover. Every team. I don't want the teams coming in there thinking, oh, it's the Flyers. We're going to get an easy win tonight. I want the teams coming in here saying, crap, we got to play the Flyers on a back-to-back. This is not going to be an easy win. If they're competitive, there's been so many changes. You pointed that out, Nick. Carolina's not the same team they were last year. Tampa losing Stamkos. Okay. I don't think the East is quite as heavy as it was last year. So I think they could sneak in to the playoffs if everything breaks correctly for them. But I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll be on the outside looking in again. I just want them to be competitive, and we'll see what happens with their goalies. Because to me, that's the big question mark with the team is will they find the goalie they need? So we'll see.
It's been a big missing piece for the Flyers for a while, is that star goaltender that they can rely on. But they've got a lot of young talent. They showed progress last year until they kind of fell off the edge at the end. We'll see what they can do in an East in a division that had a lot of change. We should see some teams repeat and still have that success, and it could make way for some other teams to leapfrog.
I like their goalies coming out. I'm glad they went with Urson and Fedotov. I'm glad they did that. I liked Urson last year more than any of the other guys they were playing. And, Fedotov's been hailed as the savior forever, while he was over in Russia. So we'll see. We'll see.
We will. We'll see. It's early. Probably about a month from now, we might have different expectations for our teams. But, Matt, for Detroit, a lot of good growth last year. I mean, you can blame Philly and Torts for costing the Red Wings a playoff spot in what could have been one of the greatest games of the past decade to get in. But again, a young team with a lot of growth. The Yzer plan has been in place for a while. You can see it coming to fruition. Is this the year that Detroit takes that step and gets into the playoffs with this core? Or is this another year of competitive hockey and maybe fighting for a playoff spot at the end like they were last year?
I think they're probably going to be similar to last year. I think the team will be better, but they're still going to be fighting for a playoff spot just because of the strength of the division they're in. I loved what the team did last year. I just wanted them to be competitive, and they certainly were that. Those last two games of the year against Montreal were a perfect example of that. Down by 1 with 1:30 left, and Raymond scores to tie it and then wins it in overtime. And then, the last game of the season, Perron with 2 seconds left, just the grit of that play. If you watch that play, Larkin going all the way down on his face, in the face-off to make sure that Detroit comes up with that puck, and the presence of mind from Perron to realize he's just got to rip it. And then, of course, Patrick Kane winning it in the shootout. So great fight. They had their destiny in their own hands. I think one of the biggest things that I hope to see them learn is, you got to capitalize when you had the chance. They had Pittsburgh and Washington both the week before, lost both of those games. They win either one, they're in. We're not even, worried about Montreal. So they had their own destiny in their hands, and it was what it was, but they were competitive. I think they're going to be very similarly competitive this year. Unfortunately, I think they're in a really strong division. I think Tampa, Boston, Toronto, Florida, right, are still the top 4 in that division, right? So you're talking about battling for the 5 spot with probably Ottawa, and hoping that maybe the Metropolitan is a little weaker, right, and is only gonna send 3 teams in, and that you're going to get 5 teams out of the Atlantic. I think the big wild card for them, I think, like we said, their top 6 is really solid. Raymond's took a huge step forward. Re-signing Patrick Kane is going to help him continue to take a huge step forward. You've got, one of the greatest shooting right wings of all time, mentoring another young shooting right wing. So I think that's huge for Raymond's development to have Kane in that locker room. The big wild card is going to be their goaltending, right? And which versions of Cam Talbot and Ville Husso are we going to get, right? Are we getting the Cam Talbot from a couple years ago, or are we getting, what we've seen the last few years where he's pretty much a middle of the road kind of guy? Does Husso go back to the guy he was as a backup in St. Louis, or, is he a 3 goals against a game guy? So the goaltending is still a wild card. Well, again, we wait for Sebastian Cossa. They're taking their time with him, which I applaud. It's frustrating to wait, but we've seen a lot of young goalies ruined. We all know what happened with the last young goalie the Flyers had that they gave up on too soon. And so hopefully, they take a lesson there with Fedotov, and Detroit taking it slow with Cossa, I think, is good. So they're going to push for a playoff spot. I expect them to be right around the same range, 40 to, 43 wins, probably in a similar spot. But I expect the players to develop and the team to coalesce a little bit more. Again, in the next couple of years, Kasper is on the roster this year. You're going to see Danielson in the next couple of years. You're going to see Cossa in the next couple of years. And I think that's when they're really going to take that leap forward, when some of those young guys make the jump.
Yeah, definitely a scary team. I feel like expectation-wise, you have the pieces there to be a playoff team. It's just a matter of can the goaltending do enough to get you there, and does the top six of the defensive core continue to grow and get better all around. I will say, in a world where it feels like across professional sports, where we're rushing the new young talent to get to the professional level and play and expect them all to be superstars. We see it with quarterbacks and wide receivers in the NFL. We've seen it across the board in the NBA. In baseball, we're rushing up these rookies to make an impact on the roster. I will applaud Detroit in taking their time with Kosa. Goalies usually take a little bit longer to develop, and if he can find his groove and get going, and then by a year, 2 years from now, come on the scene and really help unify that Detroit team that's a good young core there, could be the missing piece at the right time. So for New Jersey, for my Devils, obviously the biggest thing is just staying healthy this year. Rattled with injuries, really key members going down, as well as goaltending. They made a lot of great offseason changes across the board. I am ecstatic with the changes made. I think they made all the right moves, getting bigger and tougher defensively, with Dylan and Pesci being brought in, getting Markstrom to kind of hold down the fort as kind of a 1A, 1B with Allen and net. You get rid of the wild card rotation of goalies that they've been going with. You let Dawes develop down there in the AHL, and still believe in him as a good young goalie. We'll see what Schmid does being shipped off, what Alexander Holtz does in Vegas. He's going to be a sneaky one out there as well. I always believed in his talent, but kind of suffocated with everybody else they have there in the top six. There's kind of no room for him. So just being healthy, I fully expect this team to be a playoff team. I'd be really disappointed if they didn't at least make it back to the second round this year, let alone the conference final. They definitely have the pieces to do it. It feels like, with a good start. I mean, they swept Buffalo over in the Czech Republic. I'm not saying that's really a whole lot. We all know what Buffalo is going to be again this year. They got waxed by Toronto in their home opener the other night, so we'll see. I think that's another key for them. They were horrible at home last year. They were a really good road team. And you date back 2 years, too, when they went on their big run and really showed what this Devils team can be. They've got to learn to win at home. You can't be a team that comes to your own building with your fans rocking that building's great and not perform, right? So they've got to win at home. They've got to get consistency out of the net and just stay healthy. Team should be a playoff team, and we'll see how the cookie crumbles there once you get into the dance. But yeah, that's kind of my expectation there for them and kind of where I see their season going. Should be at the top of that division, especially with Carolina kind of taking a step back. The Rangers will still be good, but it should be between the Devils and the Rangers for the first in the Metro. So it's kind of where I see it. So those are our teams. As far as the league goes, like I said, there's been a lot of change. I feel like the West is way more wide open. You have your Vegas, you have your Dallas, you have Colorado. Those teams are going to be at the top. They're going to be pushing for it. Are there any teams out here, not only just in the West, but just across the board, that you guys think have the chance to really surprise people in a good way or a bad way? Some of these teams are definitely rebuilding, but some of them you never know, like the New Jersey Devils of the world that just come out of nowhere and have a 50-win season and really take the league by storm when it all comes together.
For me, I think one team that's going to, and I don't know if it's such a surprise after the offseason moves they made, but Nashville, I think, is going to have a great season. I think Nashville is going to finish second in their division, which is going to surprise people. I have Dallas winning it, and then Nashville finishing second ahead of Colorado, ahead of Winnipeg, ahead of Minnesota, ahead of St. Louis. I think Nashville is going to take a huge leap forward. I think Stamkos, until he shows he's not still a 40-goal scorer, he's a 40-goal scorer. Marcia, so we've talked about on this podcast numerous times. He's been one of the most consistently underrated and underappreciated players throughout his entire career. And when you add that top line to the goaltending they already have, Romaniosi is still a Norris contender year after year. They added Brady Shea on the back end, who had a great year in Carolina. And they've got great young talent as well with, Evangelista and Tomasino. And so I just think that Nashville is going to be a pleasant surprise. I think the unpleasant surprise this year is going to be Carolina. I think Carolina is just going to take a huge step backward. I just think they lost too many pieces, particularly at defense. Their goaltending is good, but not healthy. Anderson is consistently injured. And I just don't know how big a role Kochetkov is ready for, especially since they're going to be, a lot of what they've done the past several years has been to not face that many shots, right? And I don't know if we can count on that this year with some of the pieces they lost on the back end. So I think Carolina's going to take a big step backward, probably still going to make the playoffs in the Metro. It's not a great division top to bottom, but like you said, probably looking at them finishing third, maybe even in a wild card spot, depending on, what some of those other, middle of the road teams like Pittsburgh do and things like that. But I think Carolina's taken the step back this year.
Dad, any thoughts on some teams that might take a step back or two steps forward?
So I think a lot of the teams that have the potential to take a step forward are out in the West. I think there's a lot of good young talent out there. Anaheim, Matt touched on it in the opening with the draft. There's a lot of good young talent out there. LA has a lot of good young talent. The West is tough. Okay. You got Edmonton, you got Vancouver, you got Colorado. I agree with Matt. I don't know they're going to make second. I think they make the playoffs, but I don't know if they can leapfrog Colorado. Again, Colorado's goalies, we've always talked about it. I'm not sold on them. I'm just not. Show me you can do it, basically. I think that, and I feel the same way about Edmonton. Okay. I'm not sold on Skinner. Is he for real? Is he the real guy? We'll find out. Right. But the West does have a lot of really good young talent out there. So there's a number of teams in the West. I agree with Matt. I expect Colorado to go backwards. They will make the playoffs, but they were an odds-on favorite last year, and I just don't see it this year. Again, too much loss. My kind of dark horse to go backwards is Boston. Boston has Swayman, but man, they lost so much talent last year, and everybody just as a team stepped up. Can they do it again? We talked about it a couple years ago with the Rangers, and like every guy on the team had a career season, and they haven't been able to duplicate that. Kreider scored 50 goals, and he hadn't scored 50 again. I don't know that he's going to. He's a good player, but I wouldn't say he's a 50 lock for 50 goals in a season as good as the Rangers are. And I think it would not surprise me if Boston takes a step backwards as well. Hard to duplicate the season they had last year with all the pieces that they lost. Now, we'll see. And the other team that I think really, I don't know that they're really going to surprise people, but if I have to pick a team in the East that could really make a leap, I'd go with the Sens. Again, young talent there. They got Ullmark away from Boston. He's gonna play the bulk of the games. He's not gonna be in every other situation the way it was with Swayman. He's gonna be the guy at Ottawa. So he's gonna be asked to shoulder the load, and I guess we'll see if he can do it. And if he does, Ottawa could be the dark horse coming out of the East.
I agree. I think Ottawa's got a really good chance to take a step forward too. I think we all saw Stutzla's slump last year. He's not going to do that. He's going to be much better this year. And not just because he's on my fantasy team, but he's going to be better. Brady Tkachuk is a legitimate superstar. Just no surprise there. Phenomenal family of hockey players. So Brady's a legitimate superstar. Claude Giroux is still a solid veteran presence. It's a good team.
Yep.
Yeah. I think Ottawa has a chance to really make some noise. as long as Omar can hold it down, being the number one guy. I mean, that's the biggest question for them and Boston. Is them and Swayman, playing every other game have been phenomenal. They've always been rested, top of the league, ready to go. They're both great goaltenders in their own. Should be number one guys on their own teams. And now they both have a chance to prove it. We'll see which one really comes out on top there. For me, I love the Kings. I kind of bet on them last year. They didn't really show up as much as I thought. I really think that they have the pieces to get back in the playoffs. Now they did lose Drew Doughty on the back end for majority of the season in the preseason. So we'll see what that does to their defensive core, as it's not as strong as it was. But I still think they have a really good team. And like a lot of these other younger teams, fringe, it really comes down to those younger players and how much of a step are they going to take. Like Matt said, I love Nashville this year. It's really a crapshoot in that Central Division. I feel like St. Louis, Winnipeg, Minnesota, like they're all good. We'll see which one really becomes great enough to make the playoffs and at least grab that 3 seed in that division. Or probably 4 seed. I forgot about Dallas at the top there. So, but I think one of those teams is going to shock people with how good they're going to be. It just comes down to which one there. And then, that's kind of like how I view it. I don't think there's a way to bet on any one of those teams making it forward or taking a step back. And like you guys have said, I think Ottawa, some of the regressions that those teams had, similar to New Jersey, I feel like they just got to be better, right? They can't be worse in that way. So that's how I see the season unfolding for a lot of these teams. You have like the Sabres, the Flames, the Ducks, the Sharks, all teams that are just in full rebuild out there in the West, which, makes for a lot of points to be eaten up. You got Chicago as well. So
that's the thing. A lot of those teams could take a step forward, but they're not going to contend for playoff spots, right? Right. San Jose, Chicago, and Anaheim should all get better with the young talent they have, but they're nowhere near ready to push for playoff spots with some of those teams out in the West.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll see. We'll see who finds their way into the dance at the end. Like we always say, there's like any other sport. All you got to do is just get into the playoffs and get hot at the right time. You never know what'll happen, which leads me to kind of the next part I wanted to talk about. Season is underway, but have to make that preseason, I guess you could say, selection for your Stanley Cup final and your winners with it. Matt, you seem excited when I brought that up, so I feel like you've kind of contemplated this already. I'll tee it up to you first. Who you got making the final out of the West and East, and who you crowning your champion in 2025?
I've been going back and forth on this a lot. I've been thinking about this a lot, but I finally landed on the 2000 Stanley Cup final, arguably one of the greatest finals of all time. Give me a rematch. Stars out of the West, Devils out of the East, but the Stars come out on top this time. I think the difference is the goaltending. I like the Stars Devils rematch. I think it's a just absolutely thrilling 7-game series with the Devils top 6 against the Stars, the defensive superstars with Heiskanen and Dougie Hamilton. Ottinger's I'd probably like him a little more than I like Markstrom, and I think that's ultimately what does it. So give me the Stars over the Devils in another absolutely fantastic series.
That would be tough to watch the Stars lift the cup, but I mean, if there is a team for me that I don't mind the Devils losing to in the final, it would be the Stars.
Look, the Stars' only Stanley Cup championship in history is completely bogus. They have to win one for real at some point, right? They have to get a real Stanley Cup. I think the Stars and the Devils are the teams to do it this year, and I think Dallas finally gets it.
It'd be fun going to the parade, excited for Dallas here in Texas, but also heartbroken.
That'd be a tough couple weeks for you.
Yeah, that'd be a roller coaster of emotions. But it was like the other year when the Phillies were supposed to be playing the Rangers in the World Series, right? Best of kind of both worlds there. If my team's going to lose to a team, I would love it to be the team here in Texas. And also, that's a great color matchup. I feel like the jerseys wise, you get a little Christmas, the red and green there. None of that clashing nonsense that we've had with Tampa and Toronto in the first round.
Except that they play the Cup in May and June.
May and June, right? Yeah, but like I said, give me Robertson against Hughes, Heiskanen against Hamilton, just a absolute loaded teams, ton of talent, ton of superstars, everything you could want. Give me the Stars in 7 over the Devils.
Who you got lifting the Conn Smythe there?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. After last year, who knows? Because I love Connor McDavid. He's the best player on the planet. But we all know Bob deserved the Conn Smythe last year. I know it's happened before with goalies, but typically goalies, to award the Conn Smythe to a guy on the losing team is, to be perfectly honest, kind of a classless move on the part of the NHL. And I think McDavid did the right and predictable thing by not coming back out to receive the Conn Smythe trophy. It's a participation ribbon at that point. And it doesn't take away from what he did, but it's not the award that McDavid puts in all the hard work he does to win. So after last year, who knows? But I think if the Stars win it in 7, I think Ottinger will be the difference. Give me Ottinger for the Conn Smythe.
It's a good pick. And like you said about the Conn Smythe, one of you said it in our group chat after it happened, that's the last time it's going to go to a guy on the losing team in forever, because, Bettman hated the fact that McDavid didn't go out, even though that was the right move.
I don't know how a guy who's as smart as Gary Bettman is didn't see that coming.
He's not going out there to get it, and I'm sure you guys have all seen the behind the scenes videos of him being told and just being like, I'm not going out there, and then crying in the locker room with all those guys. It's like, how can you expect someone to go out there and take that, right, after losing in the most heartbreaking way?
Well, like I said, it was an absolutely classless move on the part of the NHL.
Right. Like you said,
even if you truly believed McDavid deserved it, it was such a classless and tasteless thing to do to him in that moment that, and then to expect him to come out and smile for a picture.
Right.
It was just nothing about that sat well with me.
As you put it, a player of his caliber, it's a participation trophy. Thank you for your effort. Here, we're going to toss you a bone. He doesn't want that. Not in a losing effort. Edmonton wins the cup and gets the Conn Smythe. He's happy with it.
It's icing on the cake at that point, right?
Yeah. Exactly. But
he still doesn't really care if he wins the cup that he got the Conn Smythe. No one really ever does.
It's not like no one's. I've never heard anybody at any point be like, my goal is to win the Conn Smythe trophy.
Right.
Like, find me the interview and the player who said that, right, at any point in the season or in his career. That's really what I'm shooting for this year, is the Conn Smythe trophy.
So true. So true. All right, so we got Stars over Devils in Game 7. Andre getting the Conn Smythe, being the difference maker, and that for Matt. Dad, what do you have?
So, I'll start with the East. I have the Rangers coming out of the East. I think Shesterkin carries them. They have enough talent. They're hungry because of what happened last year. I think they come out of the East. It's going to be a tough battle in the East, but I think they come out. In the West, I think the West playoffs are just going to be just phenomenal to watch. Looking forward to being in Texas and being able to stay up a little later. But I also like Dallas in the West, and I do agree Ottinger's the difference. And the reason I say that is I don't think Dallas has that head and shoulders superstar. They don't have a McKinnon. They don't have a McDavid. The scoring is more balanced across the team. So I don't think there's anybody that is going to absolutely stand out and point the way to the Conn Smythe. So I think if the Stars do win the cup, it's going to be riding Ottinger. Ottinger's going to lead them to the promised land. I think that they're ready to make that step and do it. So that's where I'm going.
All right. Another Dallas selection there. I'm going to make it 3 for me. I was leaning Dallas the whole way too, as well. I think they've been so close these past few years. It's kind of like you expect them to win a cup in this window that they've had, and it's hard to bet against them in the West. The only team that I see kind of spoiling that, and they could even play each other in the first round, I think they may have last year, if memory serves me right, but it's Vegas. Vegas scares me a lot out of the West there. The only thing that the reason why I'm not picking them is goaltending. I just don't believe in whoever they're going to put out there between the pipes. I love every other part of that team. I think their defensive core is incredible. I think they have a phenomenal forward core as well. But yeah, I will take Dallas out of the West, and to match up against them, it's going to be a rematch of 2020, except we're going to have fans in the stands, and it's going to be the Lightning. I think this team, losing Stamkos, a lot of the guys in that locker room are going to step up. They're going to show that, they may have lost the heart and soul part of that team, but it's time for a new regime to take over. They still have a ton of talent, top to bottom. They have been a couple of years since they've gone on a long playoff run, and I just think it's time for Vasilevsky to show again to the world when that time comes that he's the best goalie in the league. And I could totally see him carrying that team to another Stanley Cup final there. And I like Dallas over Tampa for all the same reasons you guys have said. I think they're extremely deep, top to bottom. I think they play a really good game of hockey. And I think a team coming out of the West is going to win it again this year over somebody in the East. I just feel like it's tougher. I feel like what people say about it, I think I heard it last year. It's like they travel way more throughout the regular season for their games than the team in the East because it's a lot more congested up there, right, especially in the metro area. And so when it comes time to the playoffs, they're more used to those long travels, being on the road, sleeping in hotels, maybe lack of sleep. And that's a factor. And so I like Dallas coming out of the West over Tampa in my Stanley Cup final. So
I will add, since we're all made our picks now, I will add that the team that I think could spoil Dallas's party is the Oilers. I think McDavid is really feeling the sting of last year a lot, but it's what we talk about all the time. Is Skinner really the guy that you can count on back there? Is he going to make that big save when you absolutely need him to make the save? McDavid can go out there and score 5-6 points, but if the guy behind him's giving up 7, I mean, we talked about it. I think it was the year of the bubble when McKinnon was carrying Colorado, and he's bringing them back, and he's sitting on the bench, and they score.
And Dallas just keeps scoring.
And McKinnon's face was just like, guys, like, give me a break. Like, so, Edmonton's loaded with talent, but they keep seeming to hope that the guy behind in the pipes is the guy. So we'll see. They could be the big spoiler for Dallas's party, but I still like Dallas.
I agree 100% with that Edmonton is the one who would spoil it. Edmonton's season last year boils down to two things. One, how good their forwards were, and two, the fact that Stuart Skinner couldn't win a close game in the Stanley Cup final, right? That's what it comes down to. Edmonton won 3 high-scoring blowout games, and when it tightened up and the offense wasn't there, he couldn't make the saves he needed in a tight game,
right?
In a tight window. That when the pressure's off and you score 6 or 7 goals, and he knows if I let in 3, I'm okay. They win, But can he take the next step? Can he win close games in high pressure situations?
Yeah. I mean, McDavid, I'm sure he has got a huge chip on his shoulder coming into this season with losing, getting so close, and knowing what it's like and coming out on the other end. It's going to sting. It always does with professional athletes, and a lot of times we see that team get back and win it. It's been a reoccurring theme throughout the Stanley Cup finals for the past couple of years. The team that loses gets back and wins it the next year. So it wouldn't be any part of a shock if that is Edmonton and McDavid finally gets a cup there. But we'll see. I do doubt a lot of their defensive core and bottom six to do what it's needed to do. I mean, you guys point to the goaltending. I think those two pieces are bigger worrisome than the goaltending for Edmonton, especially when it comes to the playoffs. But we'll see. We'll see what has happened between this team and its growth by that time, because they are going to be a playoff team, and also what they do at the trade deadline with the minimal cap space that they might have to do anything. But you never know. And it's going to be on the GM to put that team in the best position to go out there and win a cup. So we're all taking Dallas. We'll see if it comes out that way. It'll be an interesting celebration depending on what team they beat, if they make it there for me. So that's good stuff. I feel like we've covered a lot here. As always, I want to give you guys the option to talk about anything else that we may have missed here, as there's been a lot that's gone on in the offseason between our last talk after the draft and kind of the start of this season. So, Matt, is there anything that caught your eye or paying attention to now that the season started that you really wanted to bring up here and chat about?
I really like just the offseason in general that the NHL had. I think that the league is more competitive than it has been the past couple of years. It's not, last year we were sitting here talking about, all right, Dallas, Colorado, and Edmonton in the West, right? That was kind of it, right? No, there was really no buy-in in Winnipeg. And then they re-signed Scheifele and Hellebuck, and, all of a sudden Winnipeg is a good team. We're talking about Nashville this year. We're talking about the Kings. So I think just more competitive across the whole. We're looking at, like I said, talking about the Atlantic Division and, potentially 6 teams there that could be ready to make the playoffs. We know only 5 of them can make it. It's probably only going to be 4. Who's going to be left out, right? So I just really like the competitive balance of the league in general. I already called out the Leafs for being a bad playoff team, so I don't have to do that here. I do want to say, even though I wasn't a fan of the team, the loss of Johnny Gaudreau did hit me pretty hard this offseason. That was a really tragic event, and the more that unfolded around it just was absolutely devastating. So continued thoughts and prayers for the Gaudreau family. He was clearly a presence both on and off the ice that's going to be very much missed by the hockey world and, of course, by his family and friends. So just continued thoughts and prayers for the Gaudreau family.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, I was going to open with the whole Johnny Gaudreau saga. When we first heard, everybody was shocked. And then, as Matt said, as the details unfolded, what actually happened, why they were there, and it just got worse and worse and worse. I did watch, I don't know if anybody saw it, Columbus's opening montage.
Yeah.
I thought that was really nice. I don't know how, you have to go on, right? You have to, but man, that's got to be a tough locker room that, when they, that first preseason game when they're all in the locker room and there's no number 13 there, that had to be really, really hard for them. My other thought was, I know we talk about it all the time, and I'm just going to go there. Toronto, I really think Matthews will have his season. I think if they don't do something, it's time to blow it up, and it would not shock me at all to see pieces start to be moved during the trade. I think they've just we talk about it all the time. They're just they fold like a cheap suit in the playoffs. They do. They're just they don't show up. The big players don't show up. And I think, how long does management put up with this? So it would not surprise me if the pieces start moving.
Yeah,
So,
I mean it's a big year for them. Coaching change behind the bench.
yep.
Sheldon Keefe comes to New Jersey. I don't know how much I love it, but I also don't hate it either. I mean, he's gotten a team with a lot of talent into playoffs consecutive, like year after year after year. So it's the same with New Jersey.
Right.
We'll see what the playoffs unfold for them, and maybe it is the difference between the talent. It would be interesting to see those two teams match up against each other in the playoffs. Wouldn't be surprised if the fix is in to create that storyline and kind of show which team came out on top there. But yeah, Toronto is in that position as they have been for the past few years where, hey, it is cup or bust with this team. You have all the talent in the world, like Edmonton in that top 6 to win a cup. Can all the supporting pieces do their job and get you there? So we'll see how they play out. Again, just closing out with the Johnny Gaudreau situation, just really heartbreaking for everyone. Really hard to lose anybody in this world of significance that had an impact, that had the reach and the finances to affect a community in the way that I'm sure he did, and the impact he had on so many young hockey players growing up. Definitely a tough one for the world, and it'll be good to see all the tributes to him, and just puts in perspective how short life is and how quick it can change in a moment. No matter how big you are in the world or superstar fandom, all it takes is some dumb idiot, unfortunately. So
Yep.
We'll keep a close eye on that. We'll hopefully Columbus actually can utilize that for the best, and put together a competitive season in his honor. That would be great.
A lot of young talent in that locker room too. It's one we didn't talk about with Fantilli and Marchenko,
Right.
Sillinger, Johnson, a lot of young talent in that locker room too. So a lot of opportunity for some of those guys to step up and try and fill the void that's left,
right,
by Gaudreau's absence.
Yep. And watch for Cole Caulfield to get a 50-goal season, changing his number to 13.
No way. I love the tribute, but there's absolutely no way that Cole Caulfield scores 50 goals. Montreal's just not good enough.
We'll see. When we come back in the end of the year.
Speaking of, who do we have for major award winners?
Major award winners. You want to go through the Norris?
Yeah, it's
Norris,
Art Ross, Vezina, Norris, and Hart.
All right.
You go first, Nick.
Yeah, does anybody have opinions? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I wouldn't be surprised to see Heiskanen get a Norris. I think he's one of the best defensemen in the league. Again, if Dallas is going to have a really good year, he should be in that conversation. For the Norris, for the Art Ross, is that points or is that the Hart? Art Ross's points. I mean, it's hard to bet against McDavid. I mean, I feel like he's just kind of a layup for that point, for that award. The Hart, the MVP of the league. I wouldn't be surprised if Mikko Rantanen grabbed one of those this year. I mean, McKinnon's been fighting injuries, I feel like, the past few years. Rantanen's been a stable force there. I feel like Colorado's going to be a good team, and I feel like he's going to put up crazy numbers like Cooch did a year ago. So want to be surprised there. And then the quick Vezina, I mean, I think it's Shesterkin's this year. I feel like it's hard to bet against him as well for that. So those would be my major 4.
Go ahead, Matt.
All right, so my 4, the Norris, I think we've officially entered the era of Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, and I think it's Cale Makar's turn. Hughes won it last year. I think Makar, the one-upmanship is going to be there, and Makar, that's just the era we're in with those guys. So give me Makar for the Norris, but a lot of great defensemen in the NHL right now. As far as the Art Ross goes for scoring, I think McDavid reclaims it, which I know is a cop-out answer. I said McDavid last year and Kucherov did it, but I think McDavid reclaims it. I do think Pasternak leads the league in goals this year. I think that with Lindholm as a top-line center, he's in a lot better position than he was last year with Pavel Zacha. So Give me Pasternak in a 60-goal season there. The Vezina, I'm going to pick Ottinger to win the Vezina. I think he's going to carry the Stars for a lot of the season. Like you said, Dad, there's not a McKinnon, there's not a Matthews, there's not a McDavid, a Draisaitl on that team. I think Ottinger is the superstar on that team, and he'll get the Vezina. And give me Stamkos to win the Hart when Nashville finishes second in that division. With the season they have, give me Stamkos. He might only finish, fifth or sixth in scoring. But give me Stamkos as the league MVP and the big reason why they made such a huge leap forward.
Yeah. Well, I agree with your assessment in defense. I was going with Carr. I think he has a big season. Nick will be very happy if that happens. But I think McCarr bounces back. He wins the Norris. Again, you guys have said it, but I think that McDavid's a lock for the scoring title. I like Matthews again on the goals. The guy every year he seems to shoot more, and we talk about all the time, you can't score if you don't shoot. So he's a shoot first kind of guy. So I expect him to win with the goals. I think the Vezina goes to Shesterkin. I like Ottinger, but I think the Vezina goes to Shesterkin. Like I said, I think he's gonna be the difference maker. Why the Rangers actually make it to the Cup final, and then who am I missing? Anybody?
MVP.
MVP. I'm going. I don't think it's going out on a limb here, but I think McKinnon is going to win the MVP because I think he's going to carry Colorado. He and Rantanen. I mean, they go hand in hand, but McKinnon's just electric. And I think he's going to carry Colorado into the playoffs, and he's going to get the MVP.
All right. Well, there you have it. You got our awards. You got our finals winners. You got our draft. A lot to circle back to once the season ends, and it'll be fun to kind of see how close we were with some of these selections and how far off we were with some of these selections, as it's always changing. There's always surprises. Injuries play a big role as well. So that'll kind of wrap up this week's episode. The Hockey Talk is back. Season's underway, and we'll catch you all probably halfway through, and then maybe at the end of the year, but right before the finals, the playoffs kick off. So with that, appreciate you guys joining as always, and we'll see you next week.